You bitch ass faggots. Welcome back, bitch faggots. It's episode 14. You're with Jason Van Jason. This is Bitch Faggot Radio. Before we get into it, you can find me on Twitter at Jason Van Jason. You can find me and all my products, as well as a link to my blog in the description below, at my Amazon Author Central page, which is under Jason Van Jason. And for some reason, if you want to Google it, you'll find that there are a bunch of other people named Jason Van Jason in those Google search results, and just ignore them. Maybe send them a message, let them know that they should die, and if for some reason they don't die, then maybe they'll change their name or something. I don't know. Maybe that's just a fruitless hope, but I gotta do something other than change my name, because that's just totally off the table. Anyways, so last episode 13, I honestly can't remember what we were talking about. I think we were talking about copying. We were talking about mimicry and kind of just talking about people in general and how, you know, we're kind of a weird thing in I suppose just the grand scheme of nature. When we look at everything else on this planet and then we look at us, there's quite a difference, and I don't know what bore that difference. Probably our ability to evolve. But and I say our ability to evolve like it's totally like it's just confined to us, that we're the only things that can evolve. No, this whole shit is evolving around us. And as I have said multiple times now, this whole shit is evolving at a pace that we cannot even really be conscious to. We have so many people doing so many things that this entire process is just evolving way too fast for and I mean way too fast as in like too fast for us to fully comprehend. And yeah, it's crazy. But alas, it's not unmanageable yet. And I don't know if it will become unmanageable. I say yet with the connotation that it probably will become unmanageable at some point. But I think we definitely need to be more on the page of whatever page we're on. Because right now we're all kind of on our own pages as per, you know, all the different countries. And I really do think a centralized government is the best option for this world. People talk about like the New World Order and shit as a conspiracy theory, and I don't know how I feel about it. There's certain aspects that are going to be really good for that. But we also have to understand that not everyone is the same, and so we can't govern them the same. We can't just apply one fucking thing to everyone and expect everyone to meet that. That's not going to happen. That's very unrealistic. Very, very unrealistic. Even when we put a bar and say this is where you have to meet. This is where you have to be. Even when we do that, we find that there are a lot of people who can't meet it. And maybe the reason they can't meet it is simply because they're being asked to. There's, you know, that psychology aspect of it where the simply us asking them to meet it is a reason for them not to. Kind of like trolling, you know. I actually watched only one episode of this. Well, actually, no, I watched two. I watched 2 episodes of this show called Black Mirror on Netflix. And as a precursor, I'm not a big Netflix guy. I don't have a Netflix subscription. If I ever watch it, it's at my parents' place, and we're just watching it as kind of a medium to kind of relate to and whatnot, and kind of chat a little bit, you know. Me and my parents, we have a rocky relationship at best. I don't trust my parents emotionally. They don't trust me financially because of my past drug use problems and bad choices. You know, I say drug use like that's the be all end all of why they don't trust me. No, they don't trust me because, well, you know, you make bad choices sometimes, and I've taken those choices into my being, and I've learned from them, but I certainly don't regret them. And they feel there should be an aspect of regret attached to them, which there has been in the past, but you can't regret shit forever. And they're of the mind that I should regret things. Like, for example, when me and my dad talk about careers, he is of the opinion that, you know, when you go to work, you should be working at something you hate. You know, my dad, he was forced to give up his dream of being an actor. He wanted to be an actor more than anything. And he was forced to give that up to, you know, work on a farm. And in buttfuck Canada, that's probably not going to happen anyways. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't chase it. And, yeah, so he was forced to give that up to go work on the farm with his dad, and there was there's kind of a potential for my dad to take over that farm and become the owner of that farm, but his brother ended up getting that farm instead, and that created a rift between my dad and his dad, and it's kind of funny to see that same rift take place between me and my dad now. You know, as I talked about before, like way before, emotional abuse is a generational thing. It's not just a between two people type thing. It's a generational thing, and when, you know, a parent does it to their child, often said child is going to do it to their children, and so it's no surprise to see that there was a rift between my dad and his dad, and now there's a rift between me and my dad. It was even without the drug use and bad choices, it was bound to happen. And one of the things that really bothers me about that whole thing, about my dad in general and about certain people, is this connotation attached to advice. And I'm of the opinion, like, straight up, if you're gonna give me advice, you're either giving me like advice as in, well, you shouldn't do that. And that I totally understand. But usually people aren't giving that advice. Usually people are trying to give, air quotes, good advice. And good advice is based on what they know about you. And honestly, other people, they don't know that much about us. Unless you're doing something like this, but most people don't do something like this, and so you really don't know that much about us. My dad, to be honest, he worked a lot when I was growing up and stuff. I didn't see my dad a ton, and when I did, he wasn't in a very good mood. So, you know, me and my dad were not close. He doesn't know me that well. Not at all. And so when he is trying to give advice, he's giving advice based off a preconception that he has of me. You know, he says, well, this is good advice. And so I always used to look at my dad with a lot of respect, and I used to really hold his word in high esteem. And so if he told me something was good advice, I would follow it. To the letter, I would follow it. And what ended up happening was said good advice wasn't so good for me. It might have been good for him, and he might have been trying to live through me in a way by giving that advice. But as I said advice was not very good advice for me. And that's what I ended up learning about that, was that, he might say, well, this is good advice, but that's good advice for him. When it came to me, it was a completely different story, and he didn't really respect that. There's this idea with my dad that if I'm not following what he tells me to do, then I'm doing it wrong, right? And so after listening to my dad's advice, and good advice, for upwards of 10 years, from when I was 16, 17, all the way until now, even a lot of the time I look at advice and I say, you know what, if someone tells me this is good advice, here's what I want to see from that person. I want to see that person using that good advice in their own life. And if they're not using that good advice in their own life, then said advice isn't very good, is it? And that's my belief. And I want to hear stories about how they use that advice in their life. And if they didn't, then it's just advice. It's not good advice. If you're not using that advice, how fucking good could your advice really be? That's kind of my idea behind that. And my dad was the type of guy that, or is the type of guy, not was. He is the type of guy that would just freely give advice. And he had no idea the extent to which I really respected his word. I respected his word a lot, and I don't anymore. Now I see my dad for what he is, a person, whereas before I revered him as something much more, holier than just a person. He was, my dad. Whereas now it's just my dad. And yeah. And so I try not to take his advice. Well, his good advice. He says, "Oh, I got good advice for you." I'm like, "Oh fuck, here we go." And yeah, his words carried a lot of weight in my life. Like, I remember one time I was standing in my driveway, and I might have mentioned this story before, but it's a very powerful story for me. I was standing in our driveway, I guess, or not our driveway, my dad's house, my mom and dad. I was standing in their driveway, and he says to me, "Why can't you be more like the guys that I work with at work that are your age?" And he just kind of says that to me in a way like I raised myself somehow, like he didn't raise me, like I raised myself. You know what I mean? Like why can't you be more like that? And my immediate response was, well, why couldn't you raise me like that? But I obviously I didn't say that, and I probably should have. I probably should have shot back with that, but at the time I was so afraid of not having a place to live if he just told me to get the fuck out, and so. I was weak back then, and yeah, I was weak and afraid back then, but and you know what? That's the way he wanted me. He wanted me weak and afraid. He wanted me able to be controlled. My dad is a control freak to the utmost degree. He wants to be in full control because he thinks he's got a good idea of what's going on, and the truth is that a lot of the time he doesn't, and. Especially when I think he does, that puts me in a predicament where I now have to kind of let him down. I kind of have to say, you know what, you're telling me this is good advice, but you've been telling me good advice for 10 fucking years, and none of it has been very good. So shut the fuck up. That's basically what it comes down to. And there's been so many instances of us just having a rift between us, even between my brother. My dad severely emotionally abused my brother up until he was 14, and my brother tried to kill himself inside our home, and he had to leave. My dad dropped him off at a group home, and that was basically that. And my brother hasn't lived at home since, so he has... And since then, my brother's just been trying to deal with what my dad pushed onto him, which was these issues of emotional abuse. And so, he holds himself up in that degree by saying, "Oh, I've spent $300 grand keeping your brother in a fucking home and shit." And I'm like, well, buddy, no one asked you to spend 300 grand. And for all the money you spent, he's in a terrible predicament right now. So it didn't do him any fucking good. Didn't do you any fucking good. And yeah, and the big problem with that is that my dad has a very hard time modulating his emotions, and his emotions come out in advice and lectures. When he's giving me good advice, what really is happening is he's feeling guilty because I'm not farther than where I should be, or he's comparing my life to the life of other people's children, right? And he's saying, well, he should be farther because so-and-so's son is doing this and this and this, and he's doing that, right? And so he feels guilty in a way, and so to alleviate that guilt, he starts giving advice. This advice has no base in my life. It makes no sense in my life. But to him, it makes perfect sense because it makes him feel better, right? Giving advice makes him feel better. It alleviates his guilt. And he doesn't just have guilt over me. He has a lot of guilt over my brother, more than anything. And that guilt spills over into every aspect of his life. Because he's so guilty over my brother, even a shred of guilt over me, and it becomes too much for him to bear, and he has to give me a call and start giving me advice and trying to lecture me and trying to do shit he should have done when I was fucking 10, you know? And instead he's doing it when I'm fucking 27, for fuck's sakes. You know, like buddy, where the fuck were you 20 years ago, you fucking moron? And you know, that's easy for me to say he's a fucking moron, but you know, this life ain't easy, and we all know that. And I'm not sitting here shitting on my dad. I'm just telling you the way it is, or the way I perceive it to be. I mean, maybe it's not the way it is. This is just the way I perceive it to be. And lots of times that changes. But yeah, the one thing that always sticks out in my mind was one time my dad, when I was about 23, I was just kind of exiting my my drug phase of just, yeah, I was just on the tail end of it. And so he suggested that we go see a counselor together, or a psychologist. So I agreed, and we met at this hospital, and we talked to this guy. And this guy, within, you know, about 5-10 minutes, where we're getting to the issues, and I'm telling him that I have a lot of fear over my dad, and he's telling me that, based on what I'm telling him, he's replying to me that this fear is rooted in my dad dying. I have a subconscious fear of my dad dying. And I would say that's true. I don't know how much of that is true now, but back then that was definitely true. As I said, I put a lot of emphasis on what my dad had to say. I held everything he said in high esteem until this hour that took place. And after this hour, I realized my dad was a fucking nutcase. But when my dad started engaging this psychologist, because he was pretty much silent up until this point, and so I could see him starting to get frustrated. And the first thing he does is he refers to my brother as retarded. He goes, well, you know, his brother is retarded. And then the psychologist immediately corrects him and says, well, actually, it's mentally disabled. We don't use the term retarded anymore. And he goes, oh, whatever. And then from there, literally, my dad and this psychologist argue back and forth about every single contentious point they can for the next 45 minutes. This psychologist is really my voice at this point. I'm not saying anything, and I didn't say anything. We had an hour-long session with this guy. I spoke for the first 10 minutes and then watched these two argue for 45, 50 minutes. It was insane. I figured we would go in there, and me and my dad, we would talk about shit. And me and my dad, we would kind of shoot ideas back and forth to each other and bounce ideas off each other and kind of, you know, have our first real talk that we've ever really had. And that didn't end up happening at all. And I could see that my dad being right took priority over, like my dad being validated in what he was saying took priority over our relationship. And that was fucked up. That was really fucked up. I did not expect that at all. I was just blown away by this whole situation unfolding. I was just like, wow. Like wow. These two are arguing right now. That's what I thought when it first started happening, and then it got to a full-blown argument, and then they're going back and forth, and this psychologist is shooting down every single point my dad's making, and he has no reply to no logical reply to any of these, and yet he's still going back and forth with this guy, trying to find some ground to stand on, and at every instance the psychologist is just fucking crashing the ground right beneath his feet, and he has no ground to stand on by the end, and they end up, and the psychologist just looks at both of us and says, I think it would be really important for you two to spend about 2 to 3 weeks apart, and so I want you to have no contact for the next 3 weeks. I think that's really important. And then in 3 weeks' time, we'll meet back here and we'll actually have a conversation. And then he's kind of like looking at my dad like, rather than a fucking 45-minute argument, for fuck's sakes. And it wasn't even that it was an unprofessional argument. It was that my dad was trying to control the pace of the conversation. And this psychologist was trying to bring it back to us, me and my dad, whereas my dad was trying to bring it back to him and all the points that he was making. And I can't even remember these points that he was making because they just made no fucking sense at all. They just, most of these points were making sense to him because his emotions were wrapped up in them. And as I said, he had a lot of guilt, he had a lot of anger, he had a lot of sadness. He wasn't managing his emotions, and they were spilling out into his character and into his life, and how he spoke to people, and how he spoke to me, and how he spoke to my brother and my mom, and yeah, it was fucked up. It was really fucked up. And that, after I left that meeting, I realized my dad was nuts. I had held him in such high esteem my entire life, and at this point, that whole thing just came crashing down. And I realized, like, holy fucking shit, my dad is a nutcase. I think he's fucking bipolar probably, but he's a fucking nutcase. Like, holy fuck, is this guy a nutcase? And I just kept repeating that in my mind just based on what I saw. And to this day, 4 years later, this happened in June and it's May right now, so it's almost 4 years, 3 years and 11 months or something later. My opinion has not changed in that situation. When you look back on certain events and you say, like, okay, well, so-and-so was doing this or that. Okay, I was kind of wrapped up in my own feelings, and now that I've had, some time to see, I can see that this is really what's going on. No. No. That situation was just fucking nuts. And we never ended up going back to that psychologist at all, because 4 days later, he's fucking sending me this text calling me a lazy fuck and this and that, and telling me I need to get a job when I already had a job, and fucking just I need to get a better job, and all this shit, like, and I wasn't having any of it, because I knew at this point that every single thing he was saying was toxic, no matter if he had good intentions behind it. And so when I began to see all the negativity that was pouring out of him these 4 days later, I was like, this guy's fucking nuts. This guy's crazy. I can't have any contact with this guy. And so I immediately changed my number, and we really didn't speak for the next probably month, I think. We didn't speak at all. And after that, he wasn't changed at all. He wasn't he wasn't. He was just the same guy, and I don't expect him to change or be different. But, like, You would think a guy would at least try, right? So I basically what happened was that my dad had a lot of power in my life. And so I had to take that power away from him because he was abusing it. And he had no idea he was abusing it, but he was. And yeah, I remember when he said that to me in the driveway, when he looked at me and said, "Why can't you be like the other guys at work that I work with that are your age?" And I'm just like, "Why couldn't you raise me like them?" I immediately, after he left, because that was just like a 30-minute lunch, so we went in, had lunch together, didn't say a word to each other, and after he left, I immediately hopped in my truck and drove to Canadian Tire and began looking for a vacuum hose that I could stick on the end of my exhaust pipe and just go drive down some country road and kill myself. I had the note written out and everything. I was full-blown suicidal at that point. I was fucking like, I disappointed my dad, I can't believe it. To this level, I never thought I would, and I always thought that I could maintain this drug addiction and maintain my employment and shit, which I did, but obviously the addiction began to take precedence over everything, and so I kept that note with me, that suicide note. I had it written out and everything. I didn't buy the hose. I actually went to Canadian Tire and I couldn't find any sort of hose or any sort of thing to run to run from my exhaust pipe into my cab. I couldn't find anything. Thank the Lord, because I would have. If I would have found something, I would have that day. I would have been dead. 100%. I would have killed myself. And I talk about it casually now because it's been a long time since then. It's been, over almost 4 years. Well, no, that was even back then. That was a year before we ever went to the psychologist. So that was, almost 5 years ago now. When I was, I think that was like May of, I don't even know. It was probably 4 to 5, probably almost 5 years ago now. And that was fucked up. And I am a suicidal guy to an extent, but not like a depressed suicidal. It's just like, let me explain that a little bit better. I am a suicidal guy to the extent of when my dad had power over me and when he made me feel like shit. Now, I'm not suicidal at all. Now I love life. Now I'm in control of my own life, and I understand my own choices, and I understand how to make those choices and what choices to make. Now I'm good. And even when I get to a low state, I'm still good. I'm still good. I'm all good. But back then, there were so many factors going on. There's so many factors flying around. And like I said, I held my dad's word in such high esteem. Way more than I ever should have. Way more than anyone on this earth deserves to be held in esteem of. That's where I held him at. And that was kind of my mistake too, but I was a fucking kid. I didn't know any better, and so my dad probably should have done a much better job at that. He should have realized that he was a fucking idiot, but to this day, he still thinks he's the smartest guy he knows, for fuck's sakes. I can't stand people that think they're smart, by the way. Fucking, no person on this earth is smart. We're all fucking dumb in some way or another. I should say no person on this earth, but, when we talk about intelligence, we talk about universally intelligent. We're all specialized, right? When there's specialization, there's no universally intelligent person. It's just not the way it works. But yeah, and so there was one other time where I actually tried to kill myself, where I had taken a full bottle of Advil and then drank like a bunch of tequila, or no, rum. I had stolen a bunch of rum out of his liquor cabinet and drank it and put it back, and then I passed out for I don't even know how long I was out for, but I woke up to my dad shaking me. And I thought he was like shaking me, like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's shaking me, "Wake up, we're going to the recycle. I need help loading all the recycle in." So I go downstairs. I can barely walk. I'm like so fucked up I can barely walk. This must have been not that, maybe a couple hours passed or maybe even an hour passed. I don't know, but I was fucked up. Like, I could barely even walk. And I was walking down the stairs and helping him with all this shit. And, like, just going through my mind. And he's, like, talking to me like I'm a piece of shit. And what's going through my mind is, I just tried to kill myself. And this guy's still talking to me like a piece of shit. He has no idea. This guy he literally does not even have the slightest inclination of where I'm at. Not even the slightest. And I don't know if he even fucking cared at that point. He was like, back then, he was a fucking, he was so emotionally drained from my brother that he was doing a lot of fucked up shit to everyone around him. And, yeah. And so I remember, like, throwing everything into the dumpster at the recycle place, and he's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Let's go. Like what the fuck? I remember him saying that, like, a couple times. What the fuck? Let's go. And every time I was just like, man, this guy has no idea. I just tried to kill myself. Like, this is when I was, I think, 19 or something. And, yeah. Really, I wish I would have left home when I was, like, 18. Because all this really fucked up shit started happening when I was living with my parents from, like, 19 till about 22. Yeah. They babied me a lot. They had a lot of guilt over my brother, and so they babied me a ton. I didn't learn all the shit that I needed to learn. Even today, I'm still learning a lot of the shit that I feel like they probably should have taught me. But, you know, at the same time, learning on your own, there's no better way. And I firmly believe that. There is no better way to learn than on your own. When someone's trying to help you, there's an element of reliance upon them. But when you have to rely upon yourself, that's just a much better situation, in my opinion. And yeah, and so even today, me, like for example, when my dad's dad died, my grandpa passed away. This was last year. Actually, last year, the anniversary was, I believe, a week ago. So a week ago, last year, my grandpa passed away, and so my dad asked me to come out and be with the family at his funeral, and I wanted to, but I couldn't. And the reason I couldn't was because my dad pouring his emotions onto me and shit from before was the reason, was what fueled my drug addiction, was what fueled my feelings of hatred towards myself, and what fueled, you know, my suicide attempts, and what fueled my just my overall disposition of, I need to be high right now. Fuck everything else. I need to be high right now. When I was high, I forgot about, you know, how much my dad would impact me and shit, right? And so it was easy to forget about. It was numbing. And so when we're talking about one of the most emotional times in my dad's life, burying his dad, I can't be anywhere near him. I've been sober now for over 27. I've been for just over 4 years now. And that would have been 3 years last year. So I'm going to put 3 years of sobriety on the line for this fucking guy? No fucking way. You gotta be fucking joking me. That's not going to fucking happen. That's what he was asking me, was to put my sobriety on the line for him. And I just said, no fucking way. And he doesn't understand that. To him, I just said, no, I don't want to go. He doesn't understand all the emotion tied up between us, and he doesn't understand that his actions largely fueled the feelings that drove me to drug addiction. He doesn't understand that, and so I have no fucking doubt in my mind that I would have probably relapsed had I gone, because he would have just thrown like sand his emotions on me until I was buried. That's what he does. I just couldn't do that. I couldn't put the power back in his hands. I can't trust him with that. I can't trust my dad with my sobriety, because he doesn't give a fuck. He'll just, oh, he's a drug addict again, and that's the end of it. He has no idea. Even today, he has no idea of just the extent that he has contributed to that. And I don't want him to know, and he doesn't have to know. But I'll carry that. But no, I can never emotionally trust my dad ever again. Never. He's just too reckless. He's way too reckless. He has no concept of the consequence of what he's saying and how what he's saying, how that's going to impact me or somebody else. He has more reserves about speaking, politely to his coworkers than he does our family, which is fucking crazy. Like, I don't know. And so, yeah, he asked me to go. I was like, no fucking way. I can't. I gotta work. It's a shift I can't, which was bullshit. I didn't have to work. I was actually on vacation at that time. I could have easily went, but I wasn't going. And, yeah, that was not fucking happening. And I love my grandpa and I love my family, but, and see, here's the kicker. My family out there in where we were going to fly to in BC to go to that funeral, they got the story from him about me. I don't get to speak for myself out there. He speaks for me out there. And so his rendition of it is, oh, he's a fucking drug addict and he doesn't love his family and this and that, which is completely fucking ridiculous. But that's the rendition of the whole thing they get out there, that he's a fucking saint and he's a victim of us and our fucking bullshit, or our family bullshit. The family out there has no idea of the tyrant my dad actually is, and how much he has contributed to my brother's emotional abuse, mine, my sister's. Like my sister was a drug addict at one point. I was a drug addict at one point. My brother is a food addict right now. I say food addict, it's a big deal. He's over 500 pounds. He emotionally eats like there's no fucking tomorrow. And yeah, my parents at large are just totally oblivious to this. They just have no idea of how much they've contributed, or maybe don't want to know. Based on what they know right now, they can't manage their guilt. I say barely. They can't manage their guilt. And so if they were actually fully aware, both of them, they would go insane. And me and my sister had a heart-to-heart before, and she told me a lot of shit about my mom, and how my mom was abused a lot, and how potentially even maybe one of her siblings was murdered even by her mom, like, or not by her mom, but by somebody in the family who she was close to and who raised her. I can't remember. Well, it's complicated. Anyways, no, not by her mom, but by somebody close to her, and that just speaks to the emotional abuse she endured. And as I said, it's a generational thing. That shit is generational. It goes from one to the other, and it's no surprise to see that going from him to me. Not at all. But or from her to me, or from both of them to us, to all their children. Like what a combination. Two emotionally abused people, which is. And then they just channel all their emotions into their children. Like, it's just fucked. I wish I could really make them understand. But I wish I could just, like just do something crazy and just show them how much they've contributed to all of our problems, instead of blaming us for them. Instead of saying, oh, look, he's got problems. Saying, you've contributed to these problems in a big fucking way. And you take no responsibility for it. It's fucked up, man. So today, I don't trust my parents emotionally at all. And if they don't trust me, that's even better, because that means there's no chance of that trust of that trust reforming, because I've tried to trust my dad over the years, and every time, the second he gets comfortable, it's right back to the old shit. I can't do that. No fucking way. And so, yeah, for a whole year, we really didn't talk or see each other except for holidays. And that lasted not even a year. That probably lasted about 2 years. Yeah, I didn't give a fuck to see them for almost 2 years. We saw each other maybe 6 times. I didn't see them at Christmas. I was with my girlfriend at the time at Christmas and her family, and yeah, I was so at odds with them. I didn't even see them for Christmas or anything, like, and they were in the same city as me. Fucking a 20-minute drive away. I just told them I don't have the time. Sorry. And you'd think I would feel guilty about doing that shit, and I don't. I don't feel fucking guilty at all. I feel no remorse at all. 3 fucking years later, I feel no remorse. And maybe I will later on, but that's something I can deal with. I'm sober. I'm fucking happy. I'm fucking not a drug addict, so I can deal with it. You know, I'll take it as it comes. And I'll manage it. That's the other thing. I'll take it as it comes, and I'll fucking manage it. Because I've seen what emotions can do unmanaged through my parents, and it's fucking amazing. Like, my dad blames my brother like he was raised by somebody other than him. It's fucking ridiculous. It's insane. Both my parents, they blame my brother for what they've done to him. Not only have they done that to him, but they blame him for carrying all the shit of what they've done to him. They blame him for it. They say, why is he like that? Without realizing that they've done that to him. It's fucked up. They like double down on their emotional abuse and blame him for it. Oh my God, it's fucked up. And like I said, no idea at all. No, just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, just no fucking clue. Just fucking like, it just blows me away how somebody could be so careless like that. With your own family even. It just fucking blows me away. That's why I haven't had kids yet. I've had the potential to have fucking kids many a times now. I could have locked at least 3 women down and had kids with them easy. And I just didn't, because I knew I had my own shit to work through before I did that. And my parents, they started having kids when they were fucking 18, for fuck's sakes. You know, they're young and they're still young. They're only 50 now, you know, and we're all grown, so... You know, now there's this big hoorah for my dad to get his retirement going after fucking pissing away all his money on my brother fruitlessly. You know, fuck, it's just stupid. I can't even... I can't even feel bad for him, and I don't. And then he wonders why I don't. And he'll never know why. He just thinks I'm some fucking zombie. My parents just think I'm some fucking zombie. They don't understand that I need to protect myself from them. It's fucking crazy, man. And so, as a result, I am a loner to a high degree. I enjoy my alone time, as you can see. I laugh at my own jokes like fucking somebody else told them, for fuck's sakes. I'm obnoxious at times like that, but I enjoy my alone time, and I know that I'm not gonna have that alone time that I need when I have a family. And I'm gonna have to find some way to manage that before I ever have a family. That's my biggest concern, is somehow managing my alone time. While still interacting with my family, and I don't know if writing is going to be that medium, but I don't know what's going to be that medium, but I need to discover something I can do before. I need to have a plan set before I ever start a family. I need to have a plan set for my alone time so that I can be a sane human being when I'm dealing with my family and not just constantly snap at them and treat them like fucking employees, for fuck's sakes. Yeah, that's a priority for me before I ever have children is get financially secure and yeah, don't yeah, and make sure to manage my alone time to where I'm gonna be able to be sane, and I'm gonna be able to understand why I need alone time. You know, to understand that if you know, my wife or my girlfriend or whoever is looking at me and saying, "No, you can't have alone time," I need to be able to look at that person and say, "I need alone time. Period. No alone time. Fuck you, no alone time. I need it in order to function as a fucking human being." And I don't know what that's gonna look like yet. I want to know what that's gonna look like, and it'll probably look like writing. But I just don't want writing to detract from taking away from my future family, and so like that anyways. You know, there's putting food on the table, but there's also raising a family, and I want to be able to do both. But I'm gonna need the right career before I do that, and I'm not sure where that's gonna lay for me. So, and I'm 27. I think it's going to be in disability services. I think that's where my career may lie, and maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. Who the fuck knows? But I'm open to it. I'm open to whatever. I'm open to explore whatever opportunities I can, because you never know. And when you say no, it's just... You can't be saying no to an opportunity that life gives you like that. That's fucked up. Yeah. And so that's kind of my composition of my psyche. That's where I come from. I grew up a spoiled person, and over the past 4 years, that spoiling has been worked out of me, and it's still being worked out of me today. But it's a slow process, but I'm getting there. I wish my parents would have had more discipline in their parenting style, but they didn't. They took the easy way out because they were emotionally incapable of incurring any more negative emotion, and it's a really sad thing that's what happened. I wish it would have turned out better for all of us. And my sister's doing great. My sister's fantastic, as far as I know. Financially, she's doing great, but like I said, she's got problems as well. She used to be a drug addict. She's not anymore. She's clean for much longer than I've been, and she is really a. I really look up to her in a big way. And I know she has problems she's trying to deal with from my parents as well. And I know that she is more aware than I am of how clueless my parents are. So I just wonder how she deals with that now that she doesn't do drugs and shit. I don't know how she's been dealing with that for the past 10 years or so. Actually, more like 15. Yeah, she's been sober for, I think, about 15 years from what I can gather. So, I don't know. I don't know how, I don't know how that will work or anything, or, I don't know. But, I do know that I love my sister, my younger sister, and I don't know. I just, yeah. I love my whole family, but, that love needs to be tempered with discipline at all times. And that's the wisdom for today, folks. We got to temper our emotions with discipline at all times. At all times. You have to make sure that discipline is tempered with, or that emotion is tempered with discipline. We can't just be emotional. That's not right. That's not correct. If you are just emotional, you need to change what you're doing because you're doing it wrong. And if you think you're doing it right, you're fucking wrong. That's just what it is. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at Jason Van Jason. You can find my blog on my Amazon Author Central page, which is under Jason Van Jason. The description holds the link that you can find that. And if you have any direct questions you'd like answered on the show, you can send them to jvjradio@protonmail.com. That email is also in the description. I love you all. Thanks for listening. Good luck with everything that you're doing. May God touch you. May the devil touch you. May those two forces combine to bring you some sort of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And may both those things just make you grow into the thing that you want to be. And the thing that you're supposed to be. And the thing that you are. The thing that you are. We're all something. We just don't know yet. I love you all. Take care. Good luck with everything you're doing. I wish you the best of luck. If you're ever having those suicidal thoughts or anything, don't be afraid to send a guy a fucking DM or something. I'm a master with that shit. But understand, I can't solve your fucking problems. Understand that shit right off the get-go. I can't solve your fucking problems. You gotta solve your fucking problems. But if you want to talk about it, we can certainly talk about it. Love you. Take care. Good luck. Bye-bye.